As AI touches most, if not all, aspects of our lives, today we're going to explore the use of AI in relation to improving our fitness. Now, during the pandemic, many of us didn't go to the gyms, they were closed. So what we did is we turned to technology to help us work out at home on our own. However, a recent study has found out that using AI chatbots to generate workouts might be a bad idea. Now, AI receives a lot of bad press. So over the next few minutes, we're going to explore if AI can help or hinder our attempts to improve our fitness. Now, joining me today is Dr. Alina Patelli, who's a senior lecturer in computer science from the College of Engineering and Physical Sciences. We've also got Dr. Stephen Pihlaja. Have I pronounced that right? Yeah, tell me if it's wrong.
It's Pihlaja.
I'm glad you said that. And he's a senior lecturer in English languages and applied linguistics at the College of Business and Social Studies. And we've got Dr. Luke Fisher, who's a teaching associate in the School of Psychology in the College of Health and Life Sciences. So hello, everybody.
Hiya.
Hello.
Thanks for agreeing to come along. I think this is going to be, it's a pleasure. And I think this is going to be a very interesting conversation. So first of all, using AI to help you work out, to help people work out. Are you surprised at all that AI has now moved into this field?
I'm happy to take it away. No, I am not surprised. AI has been designed to be a foundational technology, even though it can be applied in specific practical contexts. Its main driver is to underpin and support technological offshoots in all aspects of people's lives. The fact that it is now becoming a reality in the way that we manage our workouts and other aspects of our physical activity shouldn't be surprising at all.
Yeah, I'm also not surprised as well, having done a lot of research on social media and seeing how things have changed over the last 20 years to becoming more and more personalized, and that personalization happening because of algorithms and machine learning. So it's something I think to be expected based on what we've seen happening over like I said, the past 20 years.
So Luke, are you surprised with this development?
I'm not surprised with this development because we have to bear in mind the fact that AI has existed in our lives for a lot longer than just the recent generative AI evolution. What we have found is that chatbots have existed for a long time, and in fact there's a decade's worth of research on health benefits of using AI systems in their various formats. In the previous format, it was just more constrained, so the inputs that we could use was a lot more minimal, whereas now with AI's new input functions, we can talk to them a bit more like a human being. So I think that that's going to change it a little bit. In fact, in the last decade, there has been some research that indicated that some individuals in hospitals found it that with depressive symptoms found that they would actually prefer a chatbot to their nurse or healthcare provider for providing them with discharge information. And I found that to be quite surprising, but that itself is around a decade old now as well. And the reason for that is because they had increased accessibility, increased access time to ask questions, and they felt less talked down to, which would make sense because if you've got a limited period of time to talk to a patient, you might find that it's difficult to portray parental information like this is what you're not doing well and this is what you should be doing better in a way that doesn't make them feel talked down to a little bit, especially if they're feeling vulnerable. And then if the limited amount of time means that the depth of information you provide for them might not be as available to them as if they were to talk to, say, an AI relational agent.
Yeah, that's surprising, isn't it? Definitely. So we've all established, not really surprised at this development, but do you think, and I'm going to ask you this, Stephen, first, do you think this development is beneficial to society?
Well, I think there are definitely benefits for it when we think about personalization and being able to get information more quickly. It's certainly been a beneficial thing. I think it's also been something that people and consumers have appreciated as well, or seem to be more interested in, as we see like TikTok. We're able to kind of put our mind aside on some level and just be entertained in a way that's specifically, oriented towards our interest. I think about smartwatches as well, and those sort of the information that you get from a smartwatch and it telling you what kind of workouts you should be doing in the future. We appreciate that because we see it as being personalized. Now, whether it actually is or whether or not it's beneficial, it's making us healthier. I'm not sure if that's a different question. I think that in terms of people's experience of it, though, is that they feel as though the personalized feedback is good for them as an individual rather than sort of the general population. So I think it has certainly the possibility to be good, but that it doesn't necessarily mean that it always is a good thing.
Okay, looking across the table, Alina, Luke, do you agree with that? Do you think it can be beneficial and then cannot be? Or do you have any examples?
The main thing to be careful about, in my view, is to incorporate the advice that AI gives us with other sources of information. And that's the wisest way to reap the benefits and avoid the risks. AI is going to suggest workouts and process our data and give us all sorts of advice, but that's not to be taken in isolation. It's always best to combine it with advice from human professionals, your doctor, a trained fitness professional, a nutritionist, and make decisions based on the cumulative information that you gather from all these sources. I'm not saying ignore AI because of the benefits that you were suggesting earlier, and they do exist and they are real. But in order to make the most out of this, to profit from those, whilst protecting ourselves from the very real risks, it's good to interpret that in context.
I was thinking of sort of a smartwatch that tells you, well, you ran 6 miles last week, so you need to run 7 miles the week after, and then 8, and then 9, and that keeps going up. And at some point, it has an upper limit that you can't continue to do, but the smartwatch thinks you should continue to do more and more.
That's similar to something called the broken leg problem, where they look at your previous performance and they expect mathematically that it would improve.
Right.
Whereas if you, for example, broke your leg or injured yourself during an exercise, you would be severely limited in your likelihood of being able to perform in the next one. And that's something that a fitness instructor might be able to account for and adapt for within the session, but something that AI might not be able to pull off quite so much.
Yeah.
Okay, so pluses and minuses there. So if using can be detrimental, if using AI can be a bad thing, and that idea of a watch that pushes you to run an extra mile each week sounds like a form of torture to me. Is there anything that people could do about this? And when I say people, I mean like governments, policy, technology experts, universities, influencers, us as individuals. Is there anything that we can be doing to prevent harm?
I think the first one in terms of a tech professional would be to make sure that the individuals are aware of the expectations of the abilities, the capabilities of the AI, and how they should be using it more effectively, and to educate them. So, for example, with the user data we could see here in the picture, would the individual who has now access to their health data actually understand what this performance data means and whether they're performing well or whether they're not performing well? So I think increased understanding of what does this data mean and how can we interpret it and how accurate is it is important. And also the capabilities of what will the end goal be. I think that's something that is very important. For example, research recently has been published to suggest that there's a lot of novelty effects whereby and placebo effects whereby individuals find this new novel innovation leads to them to actually engaging with the behavior for a short term, and then when the novelty falls off, the health benefits gained were more like a placebo and they occur over the short term rather than the long term. So I think new approaches to that would need to be focused on how can we get more motivation for the long term and moving more towards something like self-determination theory by bringing in. So what I mean by that is we bring in a core component of self-determination theory, so our own autonomy, so we can make our own decisions, and also relatedness, so that we get connections to other people, because that's a primary motivator to get people to exercise. And so this is how we can reap the benefits from it without necessarily creating drawbacks, and how we can improve research in the area to look at the long-term effects.
Alina, do you have any thoughts on that?
In a nutshell, what Luke is saying is that we need an integrated approach. Education needs to work with research and technology and with policy to make sure that the AI that we put out there is scientifically rigorous and as capable as it can possibly be. It is supported by the adequate policy, and the example that comes to mind is AI safety and the legal framework around that, and is properly deployed with the help of educators, where people are trained and given the tools that they need, both physical in terms of hardware and devices and so on, and psychological, to prepare them to take in advice from the AI in a manner that is healthy, equitable, moral, ethical, and safe. And that is a challenge, because it requires all these seemingly independent systems to work together as a whole in harmony. And if I'm allowed to make a broader historical reference, that has been the problem with every single major revolution that we have experienced to date. If all these systems, all these different facets of society don't work together in tandem to maximize the benefits and minimize the risks, then many people are going to be left behind. And that's going to start a backlash from those people feeling the very justified urge to protect their way of life, to resist change, even though in the long term, that's going to be beneficial. To avoid that, integration at all levels of society is the key.
I agree with that, and I also think that acceptability and ethics needs to be built around it. So if we increase out people's awareness of the purpose of AI and how our user data is being used, and give us some sense of control over that, I think that that will increase the perception of the acceptability of having this data recorded, for example. And for example, if you are engaging with AI or creating AI, it needs to be in the benefit of the user, not just in the benefit of getting them to engage with the system in a way that could perhaps advertise to them, for example.
Yeah, I think one of the issues that we have is we've not been great at legislating for health and well-being generally. So we tend to legislate for things that are not related to whether or not it's good for the society or not, but for other reasons. So it takes rethinking kind of what the role of the government should be in these sorts of things, in terms of limiting what is bad for people and sort of encouraging what is good. And that's a really difficult thing, I think, for people to think about what should be the limits of what people are allowed to create and the effects it has on society. And then maybe people should be allowed to have AI that isn't necessarily good for them, but they enjoy. I think that'll be an important question for us going forward.
And earlier we were having a chat and Alina was talking about you go to the gym a lot. You go every day, did you say?
Yes, religiously.
Oh gosh, I feel so bad sitting here.
You shouldn't.
You make me feel very guilty. And so, because you go to the gym, you're there in that environment every day. Can you think of, or do you ever see good or bad examples of AI within the context of being healthy and keeping fit?
I see both on a regular basis. Starting with the bad, just to get it out of the way, I see young people undergoing unhealthy diets, talking about their eating habits, which do not sound right, even for a non-medical professional such as myself, and doing exercise that is far too strenuous for their constitution, or doing exercise incorrectly just to get as many reps and burn as many calories as possible, just because they have been shown over and over again these unrealistic body images that are in some cases generated by AI. They're not even of real people, but they are subjected to that through AI-powered social media and content recommendation systems and all of that, which is extremely, extremely detrimental to their overall development, especially if they're young people or coming from vulnerable communities. On the other hand, I have seen people coming to the gym for the first time in decades because they managed to build up the confidence to show their bodies in a public arena and exercise alongside other people with the help of an AI personal trainer in the safety and comfort of their homes, without which, by their own admission, they would have never gotten to a point where they felt comfortable to come to the gym and access and defeat their own shame about how they looked and talk to a fitness professional and engage with a healthy exercise regimen and reach their health goals. Both of those realities are very present and highly likely. It's how we manage the latter and reap the benefits from the latter and minimize, ideally eliminate the former, that matters.
And I think we're going to find ourselves in a situation where in the future, we're not going to be able to avoid AI. I mean, we aren't able to avoid it now, really, in terms of our day-to-day life. If you're using technology, there is some machine learning that's happening and some personalization that's happening, even if you're trying to be careful about it in a particular way. But I think what that means then is we've got to learn how we're going to interact with it, and what kind of limits we want to place on it as a society. That's one thing, but also individually as well. So someone may be very comfortable with having an AI personal trainer, and I think that probably will affect their experience of it as well. So if it's something that you think is a good thing for you and is helping you, and you feel like it's making you improve, it probably is doing that. But if it's making you feel bad, or it's driving you into a negative place, which can happen as well, I think the important thing for us is to learn how to recognize that and to to sort of help one another notice those sorts of things, and still live in a society together, not depend entirely on AI. But society is not great. So you just said, you feel bad if somebody else is going to the gym all the time. We still have the kind of social pressure when somebody says that they're really fit. You think, I should be fitter as well. It isn't a new thing for us. We're still at our very heart human and social animals, really.
And a lot of AI brings in some elements of gamification to try and get you to help to reach those goals. But I think we've got two examples there of how that can lead to a negative appraisal of the situation. So trying to reach those specific reps, even though it's not necessarily good for you because it's pushing you potentially towards injury. And through social comparisons, upward social comparisons as well. If you, for example, have a leaderboard, that could motivate you, or it could demotivate you if you're on the flip side of that. I think the way that we get the benefit of it, or the systems that do it well, include a social component where you support one another, and it facilitates offline relationships as well. So like in the clients where they, or the individuals where they came to the gym, that's facilitating the offline relationships and getting connected with one another, rather than just focusing or having it replaced by AI. I think that's a crucial, important component of getting the benefit.
Okay. One final question, and I hope you've all got your crystal balls with you today. Did ask you to bring them. A lot of research is conducted into AI here at Aston University, and I just wondered, either looking at your own research or research you've read about elsewhere, do you have any predictions of how AI, particularly within the area of fitness, is going to develop in the future?
Not necessarily a prediction, but an educated guess based on what I've seen. It is going to continue to develop, and not just in what concerns physical exercise, physical activity, nutrition advice, and so on, stuff that has to do with our health and well-being, but in all aspects of society. And that is a good thing, because never in our history did we have this magnificent tool with such a great potential for social good, which is, on the flip side, shadowed by very, very real and present risks, as is with all revolutionary technologies. The AI wave is coming. I don't think we can, nor should we, stop it because of its fantastic potential for good. But what we need to do is prepare ourselves both individually and as members of the society to make the most out of the benefits whilst mitigating the harm and risks. And if I'm allowed to end my contribution on a slightly positive note, forever the optimist, never have we been, as a species, throughout our history, this well prepared for a revolution, technological or of another nature, as we are now. Because we've already gone through the agricultural revolution, and I don't know how many industrial revolutions to date, I lose count. So we know what went wrong, what we didn't do as well as we could have, in order to make the benefits of those technologies, of those approaches, of those methodologies that were introduced throughout those revolutions be accessible to everyone equitably and safely and benefit all. We do now. We have that experience, and we are in a good place. We have everything we need to succeed in applying that experience to make the most out of AI.
And I agree, and I think that as we adapt, as we get further integrated with AI, it will become similar to like the fear that we used to have, the moral panic that we used to have about TVs coming into our lives. That's then changed towards smart screens, towards smartphones. I think that what will happen is we'll become adapted to it, and that we will be able to then or use it to augment our lives and use it to make better health decisions and to improve our relationships and online and offline, and our healthy behaviors as well. I think it will decrease, say, barriers to knowledge. So, for example, if you don't have access towards a personal trainer for consistent meetings, you will be able to potentially get some of your health information from these health apps and supplement it with more occasional visits with your experts. And I think that will break down the barriers to accessing knowledge. And for example, you could potentially get AI to summarize some of the recent literature about some sort of exercise that you've recently done, that otherwise you'd need to be an expert, aware of the technology, of the terminologies, and how to source the information. And in order to then synthesize it into your own understanding, AI could potentially do that for you in a way that's easy for you to digest. So it's weird in the information age that I would say that you would get increased accessibility to knowledge, but I think it's decreasing the boundary to it and synthesizing it in a way that is digestible and doesn't necessarily require you to be an expert in understanding the research area itself, because those research areas could be summarized.
Yeah. And I think humans still appreciate the human contact with other people. We have a lot of technologies that could replace humans that we sometimes, we still value the human contact. You'll go to a community orchestra to hear a community orchestra play when you could, buy a, recording of that same orchestra played much better by a much better orchestra. But you still go because it's important to see people doing it. You appreciate that kind of that contact. I think that same sort of thing will happen with physical fitness and with personal trainers as well, that will value the input of a real person and their real experiences, and them being there with us. I think that's a really important thing that AI can't accomplish in the same sorts of way, that embodied experience of being with another human being. But in terms of crystal balls and where things will be in the future and the extent to which we will become integrated with technology is yet to be seen. So I will leave that as a caveat.
I think of it similar to the way of social media and the way that we view it, social media use. Initially, the research on it was showing negative associations,
right,
but over long term, you find that those associations are weak, and you can't know whether it's correlation or causation, and that the actions of the way that we engage with social media was the important component, and that in fact, if you augment it, use it to facilitate offline relationships, like using WhatsApp and having more detailed conversations with one another, that increases access to social capital, so increase access to social resources, and so that feeling of connection, which is good for your well-being. But if you spend too much time on it and you use it to replace the time, then you experience something called the displacement hypothesis, where it displaces other things that might be more healthy for you, like that in-person engagement. So I think AI could learn from the revolution of social media and our understanding of how we can use it in that way. And I think that we will in a positive way.
That's a really optimistic and positive thing to end on. So thank you all three of you.
Thank you for having us.
It's a pleasure. And I'm going to go to the gym now. And thank you for viewing the latest Aston Originals. Subscribe to us on our YouTube channel, and you can also follow us on X.